Yeah, even my dog is watching my attempts to record a video, and I think he is not appreciating it. But anyway, today I want to talk about the topic that is very much dear and near to my heart, and I want to start with a quote from the movie called Inception, one of the best movies out there.
What is the most resilient parasite? A bacteria? A virus? An intestinal worm?
Uh, what Mr. Cobb is trying to say.
An idea. Resilient, highly contagious. Once an idea has taken hold of the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks. Right in there somewhere.
The idea is like a virus. It's resilient, it's highly contagious. The smallest seed of an idea can grow, it can grow to define or destroy you, said Leonardo DiCaprio. And oh my god, you have no idea how right he was and how true this statement is. And how much your beliefs, values, and identity are determined by this one mechanism, an approach that your brain developed over the course of a human evolution. I'm talking, of course, about confirmation bias. In a nutshell, this is a tendency of your brain to unconsciously select facts that support your opinion and ignore or completely discount contradictory evidence. Imagine that there are different beliefs you might have. Well, actually, you don't have to imagine, you already have them. It can really be anything, any position you hold, any religious or spiritual beliefs, any political beliefs. Um, how those beliefs even came about is a whole separate topic, not for today. But say you already have them, and say you believe that the last iPhone is so much better than the Samsung flagship. And there's, of course, a whole range of various facts and opinions you run into in the real world on a daily basis, from news or social media or friends or things you hear, etc. And so, from the universe of these opinions and assumptions, we automatically seek out those that confirm our beliefs. We give them more value, more weight, if you will. For example, you would, in all those news and YouTube videos, notice that iPhone front camera is better and that it's got a longer battery life. However, you will probably fail to notice, or more likely disregard, the fact that Samsung refresh rate is higher and the main camera is better. And yes, this is a really simplistic example, of course. In way more complicated ones, when we talk about complex social issues like firearms or the abortion or globalism or political views of different kind, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same. The principle stays exactly the same. You see what you want to see and you hear what you want to hear. But that's not all. I mean, that's basic mechanism that we all kind of know and support. But what you might not know is that based on the beliefs we have and based on the confirmations that we're looking for, we tend to pick social groups. We pick them exactly for the purpose of them being our echo chambers of opinions, confirming our beliefs. They reinforce and confirm your beliefs by showing you things and talking to you about things that play along with your original way of thinking. They give you what you want. They tell you what you want to hear. Think about your spouse, your friends, your parents, or actually any other supportive group. They probably want you to be happy, right? And one way to make you happy is for them to basically agree with what you're saying, agree with your beliefs, sometimes mistaken beliefs. And it feels good, surprisingly. And the reason it is because there's actually a neurobiological mechanism. The research shows that our brains release dopamine, a reward molecule, when we find the facts that confirm our beliefs or values. And this mechanism by itself strengthens the belief, which increases the likelihood that we'll be looking for the confirmation facts for these beliefs in the future. But when the facts don't agree with our beliefs, with our values, and there are too many conflicting evidence, what we do? What do you think we do? Do you think we change the opinion? No, more often than not, we change the standard of proof. So that means that the facts that we like or support become more important, and the ones that we don't become less important. So take an example, like if say New York Times writes something that you highly support, all good. This is a reliable source of information. You believe it, you trust it, etc. It doesn't have to be New York Times. Pick any media you like. But as soon as you see that something they publish something that contradicts your beliefs, it becomes a tabloid. Or you suddenly remember that they may have their own agenda, or they're owned by a mogul or whatever. And when all the major media start saying the same thing you don't want to hear, it's actually quite possible that you would prefer to join a fringe group of conspiracy theorists who will check your beliefs, who will confirm your beliefs, versus changing your belief system entirely. And this mechanism alone leads to the whole range of cognitive biases that shape our behavior and make it much harder for us to make good decisions. I'm going to talk about a few examples, but trust me, this is just a few. Selective perception, motivated reasoning, first inference bias, commitment and consistency bias, a very powerful one. Dunning-Kruger effects, of course, who would go anywhere without it. Self-serving bias, willful blindness, and many, many others. And really, my standpoint is that it all comes from the roots of this one mechanism based in a confirmation bias. On the other hand, this bias seems to be very important for our normal cognition. It helps us create an illusion that the world makes sense, that it's manageable, and allows us to make decisions, like daily, regular decisions. But at the same time, there are quite a few issues with that. So let's start with this. It allows humans to be manipulated in an extremely easy way. All the malicious actors have to do is to plant the idea in your brain, like the hero of Leonardo DiCaprio was saying in the beginning. It could be done through opinion leaders or media or whatever it is, and give you a universe of information that contains corroborating facts. Again, it just has to contain those facts. It doesn't have to consist of only those facts. And they just need to repeat it over and over again. They don't even have to worry about whether there's truths in this flow of information or not. Our minds will do the work. They will pick the facts that confirm the original belief and be done with that. In business, we fall into this confirmation trap all the time. One of the best examples, well-known examples, is when we're in the process of hiring someone. So research shows that we shape our opinion about a person in as little as 30 milliseconds without even realizing it. Of course, there's no time to realize that. So we put the person in a bucket or buckets that we think they belong. And after that, our mind's just in a constant hunt for the facts that would confirm the beliefs that we had in this first 30 milliseconds. Obviously, you can imagine that it doesn't lead to the best hiring process. Another example is when we don't reevaluate the strategy we've chosen. See, once we make something ours per se, let's say our president, our country, our car, our strategy, we're much more inclined to adjust the facts and the standard of proof to make them look good in our eyes. Therefore, we tend to hold on to the dead projects, initiative, and people, well, really much longer than we should. Those are just, 3 examples off the top of my head, but there's quite a lot more. The next question, of course, is how do you solve this problem? You don't necessarily always have to avoid this bias. After all, this is a mechanism that evolved for a reason. It creates an illusion of the manageable world around us. But if you want to make a serious decision, you need to make sure you don't fall victim to this. So how do you do it? Look, this is one of those funny biases that is incredibly impactful and strong, but at the same time, it could be quite easy to fix. In many cases, it's enough to just remember the fact that this thing exists and catch yourself using it, and that would be enough to fix the problem for some decisions. Yes, it's much harder to notice in yourself than in others. That's why it's beneficial to have non-confirmatory groups that would help you detect your biases and avoid them. That's another method. One more thing you might want to think about is avoiding the first impressions. So try not to draw conclusions from the first few seconds after you met someone or learned about something. Just let it stew a little bit in your mind, and give it some time, and then think about it. Most importantly, question your values. Like, ask yourself, why do you think this technology is the future? Why do you think that this particular politician sucks? Is there a contradictory evidence? Because if you just by default ask yourself this question, you will be looking for confirmations. Ask, is there a contradictory evidence? And be intellectually honest with yourself. The definition of intellectual honesty for me means that you must not change the standard of proof depending of where you want the result to land. So if you catch yourself changing the standard of proof and the standard of evidence, that's not intellectual honesty. Try to avoid this trap. And of course, rely on the scientific method in general. The simplest way to describe the scientific method is whoever you are, you could be Einstein or Newton, you can be the biggest scientist over there. If the experiments find contradictory evidence that disprove your hypothesis, it's done, it's dead. It doesn't matter what kind of weight you have in the field. Well, of course, unless this is psychology or dietology, those don't work in this same scientific fashion. Try to rely on the data as much as possible. It, of course, can also be manipulated and used as a tool for confirmation bias, but you will struggle to unsee the data that shows that you were wrong by a wide margin. I mean, again, you can, but yeah, it's a different story. So that's that. I hope you learned something new today, and from now on, we'll be making a little bit better decisions than you did before. See you next time.